He was a millionaire with everything money could buy. Yet on his deathbed, he asked for something no wealth could give, and the one who granted it was a poor orphan no one ever noticed. What happened next changed both of their lives forever. Stay with me until the end, because this story will break your heart and heal it at the same time. Before we begin, take a second to like this video, hit subscribe, and comment where you're watching from. Enjoy the story. Marcus had built an empire. At 62, he owned 17 companies, 3 mansions, and a fleet of cars worth more than most people would see in their lifetimes. His name appeared on buildings across the city, and politicians called him personally when they needed favors. But success had cost him everything that mattered. His wife had left him years ago, tired of coming second to board meetings and business deals. His 2 children lived on the opposite coast, calling only on birthdays and holidays with voices that sounded polite but distant. Now, lying in the private wing of St. Mary's Hospital, Marcus stared at machines that beeped steadily beside his bed. The doctors had given him 6 weeks, maybe 8 if he was lucky. Cancer spread through his body like wildfire, and all his money couldn't buy him more time. The room was filled with flowers from business associates, fruit baskets from employees, and cards from people who barely knew him but wanted to stay in his good graces. Yet Marcus felt completely alone. He'd built a fortune but forgotten to build a life. That's when she walked in. Emma was 19, with worn shoes and a uniform that had seen better days. She worked the night shift at the hospital, cleaning rooms and emptying trash bins. Most patients never really looked at her. She was invisible, just another face in scrubs moving quietly through the halls. But Marcus noticed her immediately. It wasn't her appearance that caught his attention, though she had kind eyes and moved with quiet grace. It was something else. While everyone else who entered his room spoke to him with calculated respect or nervous energy, Emma simply did her job. She didn't ask about his businesses or mention his reputation. She cleaned around him as if he were just another patient who needed rest and peace. One night, as she emptied his wastebasket, Marcus spoke to her for the first time. "What's your name?" She looked up, surprised. Most patients ignored her completely. "Emma, sir." "How long have you worked here, Emma?" "About a year now." Her voice was soft but steady. "I work nights and weekends to pay for college classes during the day." Marcus studied her face. There was no bitterness in her expression, despite her obvious struggles. No envy as she looked around his expensive private room. Just quiet determination. "What are you studying?" "Social work." "I want to help kids who grew up like I did." She paused, then added quietly, "In the system." Foster care. Marcus understood now why she carried herself with such independence. She'd learned early that she could only count on herself. Over the following nights, their conversations grew longer. Emma would finish her cleaning and linger for a few minutes. If Marcus seemed awake and willing to talk, she told him about her childhood, moving from home to home, never staying anywhere long enough to feel settled. She spoke about her dreams of opening a center for aging out foster kids, giving them support as they transitioned to independent living. Marcus found himself looking forward to these brief conversations more than visits from his lawyers or business partners. Emma asked him about his life, but not in the way others did. She didn't want to know about his wealth or connections. She asked about his childhood, his parents, what he wanted to be when he grew up. "Like, I wanted to be a teacher," Marcus admitted one night, the word surprising him. He hadn't thought about that dream in decades. "I loved helping my younger cousins with their homework, but my father said teaching was for people who couldn't make real money." Emma nodded thoughtfully. "Sometimes the most important work doesn't pay the most." These words stayed with Marcus long after Emma had moved on to clean other rooms. He began to see his life differently. All his achievements felt hollow compared to Emma's simple goal of helping others. As weeks passed, Marcus grew weaker, but his conversations with Emma became the brightest part of his days. She would arrive each night around 11, and by now, other staff members knew to give them space. Emma would sit in the chair beside his bed, and they would talk about everything and nothing. One evening, Marcus asked a question that had been weighing on his mind. "Do you ever feel angry about how your life started? Being abandoned? Moving through all those homes?" Emma considered this carefully. "I used to, But I realized that anger was just hurting me more. The people who were supposed to love me couldn't, for whatever reason. But that doesn't mean I'm unlovable. It just means their love wasn't available. Her wisdom struck Marcus deeply. Here was a girl who had every reason to be bitter, yet she'd chosen grace instead. "What about you?" Emma asked gently. "Do you feel angry about anything?" Marcus was quiet for a long time. Finally, he spoke. "I'm angry that I spent so much time building things that don't matter. I have all this money, all this success, but I don't have what you have. What do I have? Peace, purpose, the ability to see good in people." Marcus's voice grew heavy. "I don't know how to connect with people anymore, Emma. I've forgotten how to love and be loved." Emma reached over and placed her hand on his. Her touch was warm and steady. "It's never too late to remember." But Marcus shook his head sadly. "It is for me. I have maybe 3 weeks left. My children barely know me. My ex-wife won't even take my calls. I've spent 40 years building walls, and now there's no time to tear them down." That night, after Emma left, Marcus lay awake staring at the ceiling. The machines beat their steady rhythm, marking time he didn't have. For the first time since his diagnosis, he wasn't thinking about business deals or financial arrangements. He was thinking about Emma's words. "It's never too late to remember." The next morning, Marcus called his lawyer and made some unusual requests. Then he waited for evening to come, for Emma to appear in his doorway with her quiet smile and gentle presence. When she arrived that night, Marcus was sitting up in bed, more alert than she'd seen him in days. "Oh, Emma," he said, "I need to ask you something important. Something that might sound strange." She settled into her usual chair, giving him her full attention. "What is it?" Marcus took a deep breath. What he was about to ask would change everything. But as he looked into Emma's kind eyes, he knew she was the only person who could help him find what he'd been searching for his entire life. "I have a last wish," he said quietly, "but it's not what you might expect." Emma leaned forward slightly, waiting for him to continue. "I don't want to die alone," Marcus said, his voice barely above a whisper. "But more than that, I don't want to die without ever experiencing what it feels like to have someone care about me. Not because of what I own, but because of who I am." Emma's eyes softened, but she remained silent, sensing there was more he needed to say. Marcus struggled to sit up straighter. "My whole life, people have wanted something from me. Business deals, investments, donations, connections, even my own family. When my wife left, she took half of everything I'd built. When my children call, it's usually because they need money for something. I've never had someone in my life who just wanted me." He paused, looking out the window at the city lights below. "You're the first person in 20 years who sat with me and asked nothing in return. You don't even know how much money I have, do you?" Emma shook her head. "I know you're wealthy, but I don't know the details. It doesn't matter to me. That's exactly why it has to be you." Marcus turned back to face her. "Emma, I want you to pretend to be my daughter." The words hung in the air between them. Emma blinked, clearly not understanding. "Not legally," Marcus continued quickly. "Not for money or inheritance. Just for these last few weeks. I want to know what it feels like to have someone visit me because they care, not because they have to. Someone who might hold my hand when I'm scared or tell me about their day, or just sit here and watch old movies with me." Emma's throat tightened. "Marcus, I don't know if that's a good idea. I'm not trained for this kind of thing. I'm just a cleaning person." "So you're not just anything," Marcus said firmly. "You're the kindest person I've met in years. You've already been doing it without realizing it. These conversations we have, the way you listen to me, the way you treat me like I matter as a person. That's what daughters do." Emma looked down at her hands. "What about your real children?" Marcus's expression darkened. "They made it clear years ago that they don't have time for a dying old man. My son lives in California and hasn't visited once since my diagnosis. My daughter sent flowers and a card that said she's too busy with her own family to travel. They're waiting for a reading, not holding vigil." The pain in his voice was unmistakable. Emma felt something break inside her chest. She knew what it was like to be unwanted, but she'd never imagined someone with everything could feel so abandoned. "I can't pay you," Marcus continued. "This isn't about money. This is about giving me something I've never had and giving you something you never had either. A parent who's proud of you. A father who wants to hear about your dreams and fears. And ordinary Tuesday afternoons. Emma wiped her eyes, surprised by the tears that had started falling. I don't know how to be someone's daughter. I've been on my own since I was 18. I don't know how to be someone's father either, Marcus admitted. But maybe we can figure out together. These last few weeks, they don't have to be about dying. They can be about living something we both missed. Emma stood up and walked to the window, processing his words. Below them, the city continued its endless motion. Millions of people moving through their lives, most of them surrounded by family they took for granted. Here in this sterile hospital room were two people who'd found each other across an impossible divide of wealth and circumstance, both desperate for connection. What would that look like? She asked quietly, still facing the window. You could visit me during your breaks, not just when you're cleaning. We could talk about your classes, your dreams to that foster care center. I could give you advice, worry about whether you're eating enough, get annoyed when you stay up too late studying, all the things I should have done with my real children, but was too busy to notice. Emma turned back to face him. And what do you get out of it? Marcus smiled, and for the first time since she'd known him, it reached his eyes. I get to know what it feels like to matter to someone, to have someone rush to see me because they miss me, not because they need something, to have someone whose day gets a little brighter when they see me. Emma sat back down, her mind racing. It was an unusual request, maybe even inappropriate. But as she looked at this powerful man who'd been reduced to begging for a basic human connection, she understood something fundamental. Wealth could buy comfort, but it couldn't buy love. Success could buy respect, but it couldn't buy genuine care. Marcus had spent his entire life accumulating things that couldn't fill the void in his heart. I have one condition, Emma said finally. Marcus' face lit up with hope. Anything. You have to let me teach you something too. What's that? Emma smiled. How to be proud of someone else's accomplishments instead of your own. How to celebrate small victories. How to find joy in ordinary moments. All the things I learned in foster care that money can't teach. Marcus felt tears spring to his eyes. You'd really do this? Spend your free time with a sick old man who's probably gonna die in a few weeks? You're not just a sick old man, Emma said, echoing his earlier words. You're someone who deserves to feel loved before you go. Over the next 3 days, everything changed. Emma started arriving an hour before her shift to visit with Marcus. She brought her textbooks and studied at his bedside while he dozed. When he was awake, they'd talk about her classes, her professors, her hopes for the future. Marcus found himself asking questions he'd never thought to ask his own children. What was her favorite subject? What scared her most about graduation? Did she want to travel someday? What kind of music made her happy? Emma, in turn, asked Marcus about his childhood, his parents, the dreams he'd abandoned to build his empire. She listened without judgment as he told her about the loneliness of success, the weight of always having to be strong, the fear of dying without anyone truly knowing who he was beneath all the achievements. For the first time in decades, Marcus felt seen. Emma started calling him Dad, tentatively at first, then with growing comfort. Marcus began introducing her to nurses as my daughter, with a pride that surprised them both. But their arrangement was about to face its biggest test. Because on Thursday evening, just as Emma was settling in for their nightly conversation, Marcus' real son walked through the door unannounced. And he wasn't alone. David Marcus Jr. stood in the doorway with his wife Jennifer and their teenage daughter. All three wore expensive clothes and carried the kind of confidence that money provides. David's eyes swept the room, taking in the medical equipment, the flowers, and finally landing on Emma sitting beside his father's bed. David's voice carried surprise and something else. Suspicion. I didn't expect to find you with company. Marcus felt his chest tighten, but not from his illness. The peaceful atmosphere he and Emma had built over the past weeks suddenly felt fragile. David, you didn't call ahead. I was in town for a conference. Jennifer thought we should stop by. David's eyes never left Emma. I'm sorry, but who are you exactly? Emma started to stand, but Marcus reached out and took her hand, keeping her seated. The gesture didn't go unnoticed by David or his family. "This is Emma," Marcus said, his voice steady despite the tension building in the room. "She's been keeping me company." Jennifer stepped forward, her smile polite but cold. "How thoughtful. Are you one of the nurses?" "I work here," Emma replied quietly, "but I'm not a nurse." David moved closer to bed, his business instincts clearly activated. "What kind of work do you do here?" The question hung in the air like an accusation. Emma felt heat rise to her cheeks, suddenly aware of how this must look to Marcus's family. A young woman spending time with their wealthy, dying father. She's studying to be a social worker," Marcus interjected firmly. "She works here part-time to pay for her education." "Social work," Jennifer repeated, as if the words tasted bitter. "How noble." Marcus's granddaughter, who couldn't be more than 16, was staring at Emma with open curiosity. She was the first to break the uncomfortable silence. "Are you guys friends?" she asked innocently. Emma and Marcus exchanged a glance. The simple question somehow felt more dangerous than all of David's suspicious looks. "Yes," Marcus said. "Emma has become very important to me these past few weeks." David's jaw tightened. "Dad, could we have a moment alone?" "Family business." Emma immediately started to rise. "Of course I should go anyway." "No." Marcus's voice was sharp enough that everyone in the room turned to look at him. "Emma stays. Whatever you have to say, you can say in front of her." The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. David looked at his wife, who gave him a meaningful look in return. "Dad, I don't think you understand what this looks like," David said, trying to keep his voice reasonable. "You're a wealthy man in a vulnerable state. There are people who might try to take advantage of that." Emma felt like she'd been slapped. "Excuse me? I'm not accusing you of anything," David said quickly, though his tone suggested otherwise. "I'm just saying that my father isn't thinking clearly right now. The medication, the stress of his condition." Marcus's voice carried a warning, but David pressed on. "Dad, you barely know this girl. You've known her for what, a few weeks? And now she's sitting here like family?" "She's family," Marcus said quietly. The words hit the room like a bomb. Jennifer actually took a step backward. David's face went white, then red. "What did you just say?" Marcus looked directly at his son. "Emma is more family to me than you've been in the last 20 years. Dad, you can't be serious. She's a stranger, a hospital employee who's obviously manipulated you somehow." Emma couldn't stay silent any longer. "I haven't manipulated anyone. Your father asked me to spend time with him because he was lonely, because his real family couldn't be bothered to visit a dying man." The silence that followed was deafening. David's wife gasped softly. His daughter looked confused and uncomfortable. "You have no right," David said, his voice rising. "No right to speak to me about my father or my family. You don't know anything about our situation. Let us know in the comment section if you are ready for the concluding part. Don't forget to like and subscribe.